And greetings to you, thrill seekers, conversationalists, and music lovers all across the bountiful and optimistic fruited plain. It's the Rush Limbaugh program here on the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. And greetings to you, thrill seekers, conversationalists.
Kathryn Adams Limbaugh. Let me just explain who she is. She was born in Massachusetts. She is a direct descendant from the Mayflower, direct lineage to John and John Quincy Adams. Kathryn has traveled to and lived in over 40 countries on 5 continents, originally due to her mother's career as an American diplomat and her father's international business career following graduation from the Naval Academy. Throughout her youth, Kathryn gained vast, well-rounded experiences, routinely representing the United States abroad, liaisoning with heads of state, ambassadors, and high-ranking military officers, while also witnessing human suffering firsthand, including extreme poverty and disease. Early on, Kathryn made it a lifelong mission to help others in times of crisis, encourage people to reach their highest potential. At 15, she taught English as a volunteer while living in a remote country in West Africa. She translated for American military doctors who would set up field hospitals on missions and raise funds for underprivileged children, leading to a national recognition as Foreign Service Teen of the Year. She is also the co-author of the #1 New York Times bestselling Adventures of Rush Revere, American History Book series. She also has been a major player and led major productions, part of significant charitable efforts, including Nelson Mandela Invitational in South Africa, the Stand Up for Betsy Ross campaign with her husband, which raised over $5 million for families of first responders. And, of course, she has donated, along with her Family Now Foundation, millions of dollars affected by cancer, illness, and hardship. She was the one who told us on February 17th, 2021, that her husband had passed away. She also said that his legacy would continue, and she is doing that in a couple of ways. She is presenting the first ever American Patriot Scholarship in honor of Rush, and she's supporting American military heroes, police, first responders, and Gold Star families through their foundation. She is also, her and her brother, David, Rush's brother, David, have put together a book, Radio's Greatest of All Time. Kathryn, welcome.
Hello, Glenn. Goodness, what an introduction. That certainly wasn't from the New York Times, I don't believe.
No, it was not from the New York Times.
I believe they have a different version.
You know, I was reading your bio, and I thought this is hard to say, strange to say, but truly an equal to Rush as far as accomplishments.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know if I can agree in full, but yeah. Thank you. I truly appreciate it very, very much.
So the name Greatest of All, Radio's Greatest of All Time, is it true that that's what it says on his death certificate?
Yes, we have to be on brand at all times.
Yeah.
Very important. Very important. Straight from start to finish. But yes, it does. Another thing that we wanted to do in a way to tweak the media as a final goodbye from Rush, which we know he certainly would have loved.
Oh my gosh.
Someone put that through, ironically.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who that poor person is that put it through, but yes, it is.
It's so fantastic. Under occupation, Radio's Greatest of All Time. I was there in the Capitol the night he got the Presidential Freedom Award, and he always struck me. I mean, he was bombastic on the air, on loan from God, but he always struck me as a very humble person in real life, and I could see that really deeply moved him that night.
He really was. He was incredibly brilliant, incredibly kind, fearless, exceptionally talented in radio, of course, but he was truly gifted. But I believe one of his attributes that we all love the most was he was so humble. He had the biggest heart. He was so sincere. He never forgot the little guy. He never became too big. And he never really thought of himself as Rush Limbaugh. The name Rush Limbaugh. Yeah. He did on the radio, but not in real life, so to speak. He always tried to have a better show the next day. He never thought that he accomplished the peaks that he did. He always was working so incredibly hard. So yes, that night meant everything to him. He was very surprised by it. We were actually in Boston. He had geared up to making this announcement on the radio and thought that was basically it, that the secret was out and now he could go about his medical mission, so to speak. And so we left for Boston right after that announcement that day, and there was a call from the president when he was supposed to be going into surgery that said, "You really should be in Washington tonight." We thought,
yeah.
Well, we don't quite have the attire for that or the mindset, but he was so incredibly touched, so honored, so thrilled. It meant everything to him, literally.
Did he know that was coming? Was it told to him in the White House, or was that the moment that we all saw? Was that the moment he knew?
That was the moment that he knew is going to be presented to him there. He didn't know when we flew up. He didn't know when the president was calling that morning. He only knew earlier in the White House when we spoke with President Trump and their immediate family, who were deeply appreciative too, of course. But that moment, he didn't know that it was going to be awarded then and there. So everything came at him rapid fire, and his emotions were so sincere. He was actually not feeling well at all that evening. He was going into a pretty significant surgery the next day. So just being there was quite a feat for him to be there. But having that awarded to him where it was, in the forum that it was, meant everything. He was just a young boy from Missouri, as he often said. He wanted to be on the radio from the time he was 8, but he certainly never dreamed that he would be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in that forum.
I think Rush was, he felt the same way I feel about my audience, and not every host feels this way. They're like family. And because you get to know each other, while we're at a disadvantage, we don't really get to know the listener. We kind of know, because if they've been with us for a long time, we know that they're self-selecting, so they're kind of like us,
Yes.
How hard was it, and how long did he have to hide this from people that he was so sick?
It was really a surprise to him. He really didn't have symptoms like other people may, so he didn't find out until late January, and he announced this in early February. He didn't have to carry it too long, but
how did he know? What made him go to the doctor?
Actually, we were celebrating his birthday, and he didn't mention, as most husbands or men may not, he didn't mention that he wasn't particularly feeling well. We were celebrating his birthday, and the very next day he started to have difficulty breathing. He was having a heaviness in his chest. He had pain in the back of his shoulder, and I said, this could be related to the heart, because he had had a heart issue at one point. So I said to him, we really should fly and see your doctor. We were flying right over his doctor in Chicago, and we found out then and there that it wasn't the heart, and that it was going to need a battery of tests. And we didn't confirm it until probably a week or so later in Boston at Dana-Farber. And then from there, all of the treatment and so forth started. But he did have to carry it for a period of time because he wanted to deliver it in the best possible way. And as you said, like you, his audience means everything to him. They are a brother, a father, a family figure, and he knew that they were going to take this news incredibly hard. So he had to hold it for a period of time, but not too long that potentially it would get out in the news if we were to start treatment or something.
You start the book with a conversation that you and Rush had in the hospital on January 12th, about a month before he died.
Yes.
Can you take us back to that?
Absolutely. This book is very different in that it doesn't read like a typical book. It isn't a start and finish type of story. It's more so a collection of Rush's favorite moments, whether it was on air or off air. And some of the times I was recording him talking about reflections. He started this book in early February of 2020. And a lot of the time we were in the hospital during these conversations or these recordings. And one of those conversations was about that. And it opens up where he was brought a donut by me for his birthday. And he was reflecting on his time in Missouri as a young intern before he became the person that we all know as the famous Rush Limbaugh. He was just a young kid with a dream hanging around a radio station in his hometown of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And this donut brought him back because he used to be the young kid that would bring donuts, fresh baked donuts to the radio station there in his hometown. So he was only about 15 or 16, but that brought him right back. And he had never told that story before. I happened to be recording it, and we transcribed it directly as he said it that day in the hospital.
We'll continue with Kathryn Adams Limbaugh here in just a second. So it is amazing to me. We're with Kathryn Adams Limbaugh, and she has just put out a book that she and Rush started, and then David came in, David Limbaugh, to help finish. It's radio's greatest of all time. When you're looking through the book, there is one thing that struck me. I've led a pretty blessed life for the last 25, 30 years. And Rush is actually the guy who gave permission for me to be on the network at this time. And so he really actually started my career. But I've had a blessed career, and I've met a lot of people. But when you read this book, my gosh, he knew the giants of history and conversed with them and worked with them. Were you, when you came in and came into his life, with the experience you have, was that a little odd for you too, or not? Is it just me?
No, I don't think that part was odd as much as how he was talked about in the mainstream media and getting used to that portion of it, because I came to know and knew who he was off of the radio and who he was in person. And I think the harder thing was knowing how he was talked about when here he was able to relate to, as you said, the heads of state, or really anyone, top celebrities, key figures. That was
Reagan,
his peer group.
Thatcher.
Yes, Reagan.
I mean,
that was his peer group.
Yeah.
And I think how he was talked about in the mainstream media was the harder thing to get used to. But in terms of who he interacted with, he was just the same. He was the same person as talking on the radio. He directly spoke to the American people in the same way that he spoke to the President of the United States. He was Rush through and through, which I love the most about him.
Did he ever get used to, or did he blow off all the horrible things that were said about him? Because if you're like my wife probably has a harder time with it than I do.
Yeah, I think So as well, he always said that the media didn't make him and can't break him. So I think that he took it as a measure of success. He didn't ever particularly get used to it, but he said the more that they're talking and making things up, I'm obviously effective. So
Right.
I tried to look at it in that way as well, but I definitely probably had a harder time than he did with some of the things that were said.
So what is, we have 1 minute. Let me think if I can come up with a 1 minute question, because I've got a lot of philosophical questions for you. And real quick, how did you two meet?
We met long ago through friends when I was running a charity for Gary Player in the Nelson Mandela Invitational.
And did you know of, were you a fan of his on the radio or not?
I was a fan of his and became more and more a fan as time went on, but I did listen early on. But I should just say quickly, Glenn, before we have to go, because I know we're short on time, that proceeds from this book will benefit the children of fallen military heroes. That is very important, because this book is not about selling books. It's about inspiring the country. Rush loved the American people and our country with all of his heart. There's 14 days left for a very important election, and I know Rush is still with us and talking to us through this book.
So do I. Kathryn Limbaugh, if you don't mind, we have another break with you, if you can stay. Kathryn Limbaugh, the name of the book, Radio's Greatest of All Time. We're talking to Kathryn Adams Limbaugh, Rush Limbaugh's wife, about his legacy, his history, his last year of life, their marriage. He has a new book out now. It was started by Rush and Kathryn in the last few weeks and months of his life. It's called Radio's Greatest of All Time. Rush Limbaugh and David Limbaugh came in to do some additional writing. It is a fantastic book and has thoughts on Rush written by different people, including Ron DeSantis and Clarence Thomas. I don't know. I mean, it's still like 7 degrees from Kevin Bacon, but I don't know anybody who is like that close to Clarence Thomas that he would get something written about them after they passed away. Welcome back to Kathryn Limbaugh. It's phenomenal, the things that these very, very important and influential people felt about Rush.
Yes, absolutely. At the opening of each chapter, there is a tribute from someone that is very well known, but also a close friend of Rush's. In fact, you're included as well, Glenn. There is a page that is there with you.
I don't know how I got included. I mean, it was like, we got one more chapter. Who are we going to call?
No, you wrote something very nice that I really appreciate. And so at the beginning of each chapter is a tribute that is from people like Governor DeSantis and Clarence Thomas and President Trump and Ronald Reagan. And they talked about who Rush was in the country and also as a person. And as we know, Rush will go down in history as one of the greatest voices for conservatism of all time. He is the George Washington of radio. He is our America's Winston Churchill, as I often say. He's a modern-day founding father, speaking of John Adams. And I know, Glenn, I should say that I am 100% confident he is so thankful to have you and your voice and your audience still out there continuing the charge. And God bless you for the work that you do, and including this and talking about this. We really appreciate it.
I will tell you that means a lot to me. Thank you for saying that. We are facing the first real important election since his passing. And if I've had one listener or one host or one senator talk to me about this, they all say the same thing. Rush is sorely missed.
That is exactly right. He is so missed, and this is coming out at such an important time where I think the American people need his inspiration through his words, and that's exactly what this book is. It is Rush delivering his inspiring words. It's not talking about the cancer. It's not talking about sad times. It's talking about an individual who lived out the American dream. And he wants every American to have that opportunity. He doesn't want our country to be downgraded. He wants our country to go forward and the best days to be ahead. And that's exactly what shines through in this book, in Rush's words, not an interpretation, but directly from him. And I think when people read this and they look at it, it can serve as a coffee table book, a textbook for conservative ideology. And I think when people read this, they will say, this is Rush speaking to us, inspiring us, and telling us we must carry on and we will carry on as a wonderful country that we are.
Kathryn, I have to tell you, honestly, I didn't know what to expect when the book arrived, and I expected a good book, but this, you're right, this is a coffee table book. This is a beautiful, well done, inspiring tribute to a man that I had incredible respect for. So good job on that. Could I ask you, and if this is too personal, please just tell me. Rush was always so positive about things. Always. We're going to make it. We're fine. I have often wondered in the thoughts of the country or even in his own treatment with cancer. Were there times that he was like a mere mortal here that worried about things that
Well, I think he would definitely say, as he often did, that it is never time to panic. His audience would remember those words very vividly. It is never time to panic. It's never time to give up on America. And I believe he did believe that 100%. There were some days and some times when I think he was very fearful. He was fearful the country was driving off the cliff. He was fearful of his own health. But he always rallied. That was truly Rush. He was fearless. He was strong. He was a leader. He was an unwavering American patriot in that way. And I think he fundamentally believed that our best days are ahead because they have to be ahead. And he took it upon himself to lead that charge with wonderful people like yourself and to continue that inspiration and that optimism. I think certainly in quiet moments he had fear, as everyone did or do. But I would say that the majority of the time he would say we have to get back onto the horse and we have to persevere. That's what we will do as a country and as American people.
Did he have any last thoughts about the future of America or what has to happen that you care to share?
Well, I think when we started this book, he started in early February of 2020, right after diagnosis. He had been asked to do a similar type of book a long time ago, and he really wasn't up for it. He said, of course, how can I possibly select from such words of wisdom of 30 plus years on the radio? But really, I think that's what the mission of this book is exactly for, that he wanted the best days to be ahead. He wanted the country to continue on. He wanted the American people to never lose sight of American exceptionalism. And one thing I love so much about Rush is he could not stand stereotypes. He didn't want people to be pigeonholed. He wanted people to live the American dream that he did, meaning that regardless of where you started or where you came from or the color of your skin or your gender, that you were American. And because of that, you can also be as successful as he was, or at least a version of it, or live out your dream.
I cannot talk to you and not ask you this question. It may be, I think everybody would like to ask this question if they know that Elton John played your wedding. I just have to ask, did he know it was Rush Limbaugh?
He did, and this may be breaking news, but I believe that Sir Elton John and Rush are actually very, very similar. They had quite a similar demeanor off of their performance personality, because I believe that they both were so hardworking. They both were the top of their game, so to speak. They both loved their audience in the same similar way. So in many respects, they were very similar. So yes, he did know it was Rush's wedding and my wedding. I actually was with Sir Elton John in Hawaii. We were out there visiting my parents who lived in Hawaii part of the time, and Rush and I were in a hotel room just below Elton John, and we actually sent a note to him and asked if he would be willing to, bridge fences and come on over. And so he did, and we were so humbled by it. He was extraordinary. I think he was very happy with being there, and we were deeply honored. We love him very much.
On a personal note, how are you doing?
I think as anyone who's listened to Rush for so long, there is a tremendous void in our lives. I think that's undeniable. Every day there's some remembrance of Rush in some way that provides a bit of that hole in your heart. But I think the best thing that we can do is carry forward, and I know that's what he would want of us. So that's really what I'm trying to do, and trying to keep connected to his audience so that we can go through this together. I often say that this was our loss. It was the loss of a country, not just my loss. And I think that we just have to go forward. There's no other choice.
I know that there are millions of people that mourn with you and are grateful for you and will appreciate this book, that never reach out. I so wanted to be part of the Rush Limbaugh Club, but I never reached out to him. Only once. I reached out just to thank him for something, because I never wanted to be that guy, because I know what it's like. Just a fraction of what it must have been like. But know, Kathryn, that there are millions of people that don't reach out, that think about you and Rush every day.
I am so deeply grateful. We hear some of the most wonderful messages and receive letters and gifts, and it means everything. It truly means everything to me, and it did to Rush. These people who are listening today are our extended family, and just having the ability to speak to them and thank them and say how much they matter and we value them means a great deal to me. So thank you very much for that.
One last question for you, and that is, being a direct descendant of the Mayflower, anything you want to say about the 1619 Project?
Definitely. We have to focus on 1776. It's the only date that we can focus on. And yes, the Mayflower was very inspirational. We should not undersell it ever.
I tell you, we just acquired the largest collection of Mayflower documents and artifacts in the world. We were up against the Smithsonian in buying it, my charitable foundation. And the things that are there that prove the difference between Jamestown and the Mayflower, those people were good, God-fearing, hated slavery, and the captain of a slave ship that kind of accidentally came to shore in a storm. They arrested him for slave stealing, and then took a collection amongst themselves and sent those people back to Africa to be free. It's crazy.
It is amazing, and those stories should be told more. Our founding fathers did something so miraculous with this country. We can never let go of it. We were the most free country in the world when freedom had never, ever been heard of at that time in 1776.
Yeah.
The date we must remember. But I truly appreciate this so much, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Kathryn Adams Limbaugh, the wife of Rush Limbaugh. The book is available today. It is well worth the price. It is a beautiful, beautiful tribute and appropriate for your coffee table or whatever. You will love this book. It's radio's greatest of all time, Rush Limbaugh. Kathryn, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.